Much like with Oklahoma, beating Alabama on the road, USC found a program win of its own over Iowa. Now, is the scope of that win the same as Oklahoma's? No. Oklahoma had a tremendous upset, potentially one of the upsets of the year. But USC doesn't win this game last year, or in 23 or in 22. The only USC team that wins this game is the 2025 USC Trojans, with Lincoln Riley in his fourth year, with D'Anton Lynn in his second year, with Jayden Maiava in his second year as the starting quarterback, first year as the full-time starting quarterback, starting for all of USC's games, in all of USC's games. Iowa covered the 6.5 just barely. USC won by 5, just failing on that 2-point conversion that would have gotten them to cover. Game didn't quite go exactly as I thought. I thought that Iowa wouldn't dominate the way they did in that first half, and indeed they dominated. But USC put on the vice grips in that second half. They shut out Iowa, outscored them 16-0 in that second half, and just had a really good performance defensively and offensively. I mean, Iowa won the rushing battle. USC couldn't run the ball all that well, but they made some pretty phenomenal catches between Jacoby Lane, between Makai Lemon, Lake McCree had a few grabs. That was a wonderful game by USC. Not in the sense that they are this national title contender and they're peaking at the right time, but in the sense that they're able to win these close physical games. And they won a game where they were physically dominated in the first half. They turned that around in the second half, and they won a game where they did not win the rushing battle. They were able to go outside of their comfort zone and earn a win in a game where, past USC teams and most teams in general don't beat Iowa when they're down 11 at the half, and Iowa's just running the ball in them the way they are and playing defense the way they are in that first half. This was a program win for Lincoln Riley and the USC Trojans. Statistically, they were pretty equal. Iowa won the rushing battle. USC dominated through the air. USC winning the turnover margin was probably the deciding factor here, along with, getting that final stop on fourth down. TOP was pretty equal. Iowa had some pretty uncharacteristic penalties, like that unsportsmanlike conduct penalty to end the game. It was a tough spot for Iowa after that Oregon game, and I wonder if there were some emotions probably flying after completely letting that lead go. I mean, they were up at one point, 21-7, and USC outscores them 19-0 to end the game and outscores them 16-0 in that second half. The drive chart after halftime: Iowa punt, Iowa throws an interception, Iowa 3 and out, Iowa 10 plays, 61 yards, turnover on downs. On that final drive, I was thinking as they were driving, oh my gosh, Iowa's they're gonna drive down and do what they did against Oregon, where they drive down and they score, and it comes down to whether or not USC's offense can produce something and get down the field and score a touchdown or kick the game-winning field goal or the game-tying field goal if Iowa gets the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. They didn't even need to. USC's defense and D'Anton Lynn came to play, and we mentioned it in our video where we took the USC angle about why USC will win or should win, as that's the premise of those type of videos. We also did one on Iowa. And in the USC one, we mentioned that D'Anton Lynn's a good enough defensive coordinator to where he should be able to come up with a few key stops. And he did. Iowa, with their special teams, were able to create several short fields initially, and that all snowballed into that performance in the first half. But USC is the better team, and the fact that they were playing at home exaggerated that fact. If this were in Iowa City or neutral field with how the game started out, maybe Iowa holds on. They probably do win if it were in Iowa City. But that's not how the games are played. And USC doesn't win these type of games. Even in LA, they don't win games that go that way, at least under Riley up until now, under Clay Helton, under Lane Kiffin, even the final year of the Pete Carroll era. This was a good win for USC. Very solid win. I have some concerns about how they played in this game relative to how they'll match up against Oregon, who I think is a better version of Iowa, way better version of Iowa in a variety of ways. But that is for later this week. For the here and now, you got to celebrate this win. It was a big one. The quarterback comparison, USC and Maiava wildly outperformed Gronowski. Gronowski early on was playing well, but as the game went on, he had to do things on his own. USC was figuring out the offense, and he just couldn't do it. He's not accurate enough. His receivers aren't good enough. The rushing offense isn't enough of a non-negotiable like it was last year with Caleb Johnson to be explosive, to create touchdowns on its own. He's Iowa's best quarterback since Nate Stanley. He's better than McNamara. He's better than Sullivan. He's better than Deacon Hill. He's better than Petrus, than Padilla. But this channel will make you a college football expert and help you enjoy watching games and make more accurate predictions. So what are you waiting for? Like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment your thoughts, and watch the video all the way through so that you can get the full package. And check the description and pinned comment for more ways to help yourself and this channel. He's not someone who can put the team on his back and win when the rushing attack gets shut down or limited and when the defense is able to get got like that, where USC is just winning every one-on-one ball because their receivers are bigger, they're outplaying Iowa's defensive backs. This was a game where, look, Lincoln Riley was able to outcoach and outmaneuver Phil Parker, and Lynn was able to outmaneuver and outcoach Tim Lester. And that's something you want to see from USC going forward. I am as confident as I've ever been in USC's future after this game. Maybe that'll change after the Oregon game. Maybe even the UCLA game will change that. But at this point, USC is going to go 8-4, 9-3. They're going to improve by 2 wins after last year's 6-6 campaign. And with that recruiting class they've been able to hold on to this late in the year, no one's really flipped from them. They've added some additional bodies. I like where they're heading next year and in the future under Riley. Iowa, look, you should beat Michigan State. You could beat Nebraska. You could lose to them. This was always a tough schedule with USC, Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana on it. Even with Penn State disappointing, this was still a tough schedule. And you've gone bowling with the schedule. Maybe, just maybe, you can win out. Even when your bowl game, 9-4 with this schedule would be a successful season with Iowa. I think even 8-5, which would match last year's record with this schedule and how much they lost, would be a success. You're fighting for pride at this point. The playoffs out of the picture, but I don't think Iowa with Kirk Ferentz is ever a team that really, they want to go to the playoffs, obviously, but is that their goal? Not necessarily. I think their goal is to get to a nice bowl game, to beat their rivals, that being Nebraska, and that's going to be a tough task with it being on the road on that Black Friday. That is going to be an incredible game. We're going to do several videos on that one, even though those teams are out of the playoff picture, because it's an important game for both fan bases. It's one of the best rivalries in college football. But Iowa's season outside of that and fighting for pride and maybe a top 25 finish if they went out and win their bowl game, their season's over. For USC, they're fighting for the playoffs here. If they beat Oregon and then UCLA, a 10-2 USC is probably in the playoffs, especially if Illinois continues to win, if Notre Dame wins out, if Michigan wins. They will be in. A 10-2 USC will probably be in the playoffs, and even if for some reason they aren't, because there's a high chance there's a ton of teams with a 10-2 record and some of them will be left out, it will be a tremendous success regardless. To go 10-2, to have a chance to win an 11th in your bowl game, or if you don't, you go 10-3. What a rebound by Lincoln Riley, by this Trojans roster. They've improved on defense in terms of physicality and potential. Their offense has dramatically improved, about staying the same as they were on the ground last year with some improvements, especially with the offensive line, and dramatically improving in the passing game, going from Miller Moss to Jayden Maiava. Definite upgrade there. What else can you say? I mean, I think unless USC loses out in ugly fashion, you got to like what they're building into for 2026 and beyond. You got to like that. I mean, Riley has improved as a coach. He still shows that he knows how to call plays. I actually think that he might be one of those few play callers that maybe giving up play calling duties to win a title wouldn't be beneficial. Because with how big that staff is and him hiring a general manager, hiring a great defensive coordinator in mind, he might be able to call plays and win a title at some point, especially if defense is figured out. And I think USC is going to figure out defense as long as they keep Lynn. For some takeaways here, for game control, Iowa won the first half, but USC dominated the second half more, and that is why USC won this game the way they did. It's a program win for USC. We've already talked about it, but to bring up some of my talking points again, USC doesn't win this game in 2024. They don't. They don't win it in 2023. We can go through some games on their schedule. Let's start in 2022, just very quickly. This won't take long. In 2022, they didn't really play a single great team at home minus Notre Dame, and they led from the jump. And that was just a bad matchup. Freeman in his first year against Caleb Williams on the road. That cross-country travel's hard. That was not a good matchup. 2023, down at home to Utah. You don't win that game. That was 14-14 at the half. Utah was more physical. USC almost came back, but they just couldn't because they weren't clutch. Utah was the better team physically. USC's finesse kept them in the game, and it wasn't enough. Washington, they lost that game down at home. They barely beat Arizona that year at home, where they were also down. And that Arizona team, yeah, was good, but not as fundamentally sound or as imposing as this Iowa team. And again, you still had Caleb Williams. You had a much easier get-out-of-jail-free card than you do now. UCLA lost that game. 2024, down at home to Wisconsin, but Wisconsin last year not as good as Iowa this year. Just not. You lost to Penn State after leading them at home. You lost to Notre Dame after competing with them at home. This is Riley's best win since this is honestly Riley's best win, I would say, since 2022 over Notre Dame. Maybe I'm wrong there. Let me know. Not saying it's his best performance. There were some close losses he had where his team probably performed better than they did here. But best win? Beating a top 25 team when they were physically controlling you, having the mental fortitude to come back, being physical, controlling that second half, that was impressive. They made the defensive adjustments. That's why they gave up 0 points and only 108 total yards in that second half. And that was on, I believe, like 4 drives or 3. So they were able to force punts. They were able to force 3-and-outs. They were able to force a missed fourth down conversion opportunity. Great performance by D'Anton Lynn in the trenches, in the passing defense later on, even with Kamari Ramsey being out and their secondary being banged up. Both teams have good lines of scrimmage. Both have great offensive lines. D-line is inconsistent for USC, but they're talented. They can put good performances together. Iowa's pretty solid there. Last but not least, Iowa's still Iowa. If that even is a takeaway, I mean, they're good, but they have their own limitations. USC has a brighter future than Iowa does, and games like this show that, where, yes, Iowa's fundamentally sound. Iowa's an elite defensive coordinator. They're better on offense than they were. They're more balanced than they were. But when they travel and when they get in certain situations, they're just not going to win. And I feel like USC has broken through those limitations on themselves, and Iowa just hasn't. And that is why this is a program win for the USC Trojans. Thank you for watching. It's my mission on College Football with Sam to make you the most informed, knowledgeable, and entertained fan as possible. We aren't perfect, but we hit the nail on the head more often than we hit our thumb with the hammer. Make sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment, and if you're here, you've probably already watched the whole video. So thank you for doing those things.